All right, on to the big story that we're tracking right now, which is the UAE foreign minister is in fact in India, and the two countries, that is UAE and India, are expected to carry out a comprehensive review of their strategic ties today, as External Affairs Minister Jaishankar will host his counterpart for wide-ranging talks. Nahyan, also the Deputy Prime Minister, is paying a 3-day visit to India to explore talks to further expand ties between the two countries in a range of key areas, including trade and investment. The meeting comes as Syria goes through a political turmoil with a change in regime. The two leaders are expected to discuss the crises facing the Middle East in greater detail. And Nahyan is also scheduled to call on Prime Minister Modi, and after Modi's landmark visit to the UAE in August 2015, bilateral relations between the two countries have been on a major upside. All right, let's get in my colleague Mohammed Ghazali to fill us in with the very latest. Mohammed Ghazali, this is an important visit here, and talk to us about what all is lined up on the agenda.
See, first of all, we should know that UAE is one of the very key partners of India in the West Asia, and the current situation in West Asia is such that we have heard our foreign minister on his trips in West Asia asking people to also, basically the Indian diaspora, to be aware about the situation in West Asia and also about India's stand in West Asia. So if you see in the last 1 year since the conflict has started between Israel and its neighbor like Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, India has been very steadfast in reiterating the point that they have got valuable partners in West Asia, and it is not an isolated situation where India is just seen backing Israel due to its military, you can say, cooperation or assistance from Israel, but India has also been providing aid to these war-torn nations like Lebanon, like we had in Gaza. India has been providing aid. But this particular meet, which is going to happen in some time from now, because the Foreign Minister of UAE will be meeting Prime Minister, and at around 8 p.m. he is going to have a joint dialogue with India's Foreign Minister, Mr. Dr. Jaishankar. India and UAE in their previous meetings of joint dialogue back in 2022 had vowed that the kind of investment between India and UAE will, by 2027, it has to reach around $100 million. And one part of this entire meeting will focus on the kind of investment India and UAE are looking for. Also, the big focus will be also on contribution of the Indian diaspora, because not just in UAE, but certainly in the entire West Asia, UAE, Qatar and Saudi Arabia are the three major players. So India is focusing in two sectors for collaboration with UAE. One, India has been opening educational campuses in UAE. That is one sector where India has been sort of showing a lot of cooperation. Besides that, we know that India and UAE both are part of the IMEC corridor, India Middle East European corridor, and the first leg of that corridor goes through UAE. So these two issues will certainly be the part of the discussion when Dr. Jaishankar will meet his counterpart after some time from now.
And while, of course, you've clearly outlined in terms of the upswing in the relations and also the kind of opportunities that lie in the wake of what's the turmoil that Syria is going through, in the wake of Donald Trump set to be in power in about a month and a half from now, how do these relations get impacted? India's relationship with several of these partners, particularly UAE and some of the others, in the wake of all these external changes that are taking place?
See, it is very significant, because if you see in basically, Gauri, you know that in diplomacy, nothing is like, it's very black and white or linear, because basically with the West Asian nations back in Asia, even India, China, Japan, many other countries have good relations with their West Asian partners, but India has a very unique stand, because India has got very good relations with Iran as well. It has good relations with Israel as well, and also with these major players like UAE and Qatar. Though India cannot directly play the role of any mediator, but knowing the fact that India has good relations with Israel, we know that back channel talks continue to be happening, whether it is related to the maritime security because of the Houthis attack near the Red Sea, or even with Syria. If you see the developments in Syria, India had been providing aid and other kind of assistance to the Syrian people, though India had also asked for lifting sanctions against Syria when Bashar al-Assad was in power back in 2021 as well. So India has got a very unique position, that despite being geographically away from the site of these conflict there, India is actively involved and has a position to even play that role if offered to.
Yes. All right. We leave it there. Mohammed Ghazali, appreciate you taking out the time. And staying with this region, in fact, Syrian rebel forces have announced plans to shut down the notorious prisons those that were operated once by the ousted President Bashar al-Assad, and have vowed that they will hunt down those responsible for the killing and torture of thousands of detainees. Rebel leader Ahmad al-Shara, also known as Abu Mohammed al-Jalani, revealed his intention to dismantle the security forces of the former regime. This move gives human rights groups the long-awaited chance to inspect these prison sites and also reach out to several of those witnesses and possibly build watertight legal cases against Assad and those of his other members of his regime. But there's growing frustration as the ultimate goal of these efforts is to bring Assad to trial, yet he remains out of reach, having taken exile in Russia. Following the fall of Assad's government, videos have emerged showing thousands of prisoners being freed from some of those prison facilities described by human rights organizations as a slaughterhouse. And as per UK-based Syrian Observatory for Human Rights, nearly 60,000 individuals were tortured or killed in Assad's prisons. In fact, staying with this region, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has arrived in Jordan to kick off his important set of meetings aimed at addressing the fallout from ouster of Bashar al-Assad. Remember, there's a lot of fluidity in this region, and which is why you have the U.S. Secretary of State set to be in several of these important dialogues. He will be at Aqaba, which is a Red Sea city, and he will meet King Abdullah II. And then he'll, of course, move on to Turkey, which is one of the biggest gainers in all the turmoil in Syria. And Blinken has emphasized the need for an inclusive process to establish the next government in Syria, ensuring protection for minorities following the end of Assad's brutal regime at the hands of Islamist rebels. The U.S. has called for a Syria that no longer serves as a base of terrorism or poses a threat to its neighbors, particularly Turkey and Israel, both of which have heightened security concerns following Assad's fall. Israel has intensified its military strikes against Syria in recent months, and this marks Blinken's 12th visit to the Middle East since Hamas's 7th of October brutal attack on Israel, which really set a chain reaction, so to say, in this entire region. And Blinken's previous visits have been marked by frustration, particularly in his efforts to try and broker some sort of a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas that still hasn't happened. All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back on the other side with lots more stories. Stay with India Global.